The Chapter of Space. Xiefeng. Introduction. Till now, humans are familiar with only one side of the space, namely, they only know the space of the material world and don't understand the space in the anti-world. We falsely believe that only the environment on the Earth is suitable for human living. And after landing on the Moon and taking photos of the Mars, we are, after short time excitement, sad to feel that the neighbors of the Earth are not suitable for human living and it is an impossible task to reach the more distant planets. Tragedies happen frequently due to our knowledge shortage of the negative universe. Our confusion about the future has limited our vision within the present time and current life. All of life we live in hurry, worry and tension, neglecting the life value and meaning and mess our life which should have been beautiful. The science and technology has been developing rapidly, such as the virtual space of Internet, nanometer technology, cloning, genetic code and decoding, hypertelescopic photos of the outer space, and applications of atomic and ionic energy. The development should have stimulated the human thinking and led us to know the antimatters, negative space, the life meaning and the establishment of a brand new value system, giving us a better, easier and more enlightened life. Nevertheless, the achievements in science and technology have strengthened the people's consciousness of material existence, hindered us from probing into the negative universe, made the people busier, more nervous and worried. The relationship between humans and the society is closer, the relationship between humans themselves are more intensified, the human freedom is much reduced. People are kept farther away from their natural attributes and closer to the robotic features. The human beings are now on an accelerating train without brakes. Even those old farmers living in the most distant areas have to take the express train whether they are willing or not. The driving force of the train comes from the human beings, but the biorobots will drive and manage the train, mechanizing all the people on it. We find it difficult to understand the negative space and think it belongs to the unreliable metaphysics. In fact, when our wisdom is upgraded to a certain degree, plus or minus, we can see plus or minus it. The human eyes can only see the light rays ranging between 400 mm and 700 mm length, and human ears can only hear the sound ranging between 20 and 20,000 Hz frequency. There is no water in the middle of the sea swirls. The center of the hurricane is at great peace. So we can conclude those we can see do not exist, or those we can hear are silent. Everyone has dreams. Are you really there in your own dream? If not, why do you have consciousness in the strange dream environment with desires and emotions? If yes, then who is the guy lying on the bed? So the sleeping person on the bed and the moving person in the dream are all you plus or minus. The only difference is that you are in different spaces. The space in the dream is the negative space. There are many negative spaces in the universe and dream space is only one of them. We need to understand the concept of space by using the ideas of Sakyamuni and Einstein's theory of relativity. Sakyamuni said, degree in a tiny dust, there are many limitless worlds. In the worlds, there are dusts too. And in these dusts, there are also many worlds and the process repeats that, plus or minus represents the world and the tiny dust stands for the universe. For instance, 1 nanometer, compared with a grain of sand, is just a tiny dust. Compared with the Earth, a grain of sand is a tiny dust. Compared with the Milky Way system, the Earth is a tiny dust. Compared with the Earth universe, the Milky Way system is a tiny dust. With the large universe, the Earth universe is a tiny dust. Einstein once said, degree. Relativity space is endowed with physical qualities. In this sense, therefore, there exists an ether that, plus or minus the non-materials are the contrast of the materials. The negative space is the opposite of the space. The celestial beings are the contrast of the human beings. The intangible life is the opposite of the tangible life. A leaf, a water drop, and a sand grain are all a mammoth world. A silicon chip of 1 square mm can store all the books in a large library. An electrical pulse of a frequency can carry numerous things. A human body includes 130 trillion lives. A sand grain can hold thousands of villages. For a life body that can only be seen under an electron microscope, humans are the giants. For a human being, the Earth as a living life body is a titanic giant. However, when the time-space changes, 100 million people can live on a grain of sand and will not feel crowded. In different spaces, the life has their distinctive living conditions and food system. We can never understand the living conditions and food systems of the people living in another time-space based on our own. At the same time, we cannot regard those living in another time-space have the same height or weight as we do. You might think I am just talking about nonsense when I tell you that you can live on the planet several million light-years away. That's because you don't understand the negative universe speed. So what is the negative universe speed? It is the moving speed of the antimatters. For example, a person working at the Antarctic workstation misses his hometown very much. His thinking can immediately go to his hometown. Though his body is still in the Antarctic, his thinking and consciousness is in the hometown. This is the negative universe speed. For the sake of understanding, I assume the negative universe speed at 1 light-year per second, the actual speed is faster than that. When we enter the space tunnel, we degree go plus or minus at the negative universe speed. The meaning of the space. The locations where the matters and antimatters are and their movement scope are called the space. The space is decided by the material existence and distribution. The negative space is determined by the non-material existence and distribution. There will be no space without the materials. And there will be no negative space without the non-materials. The space includes absolute and relative spaces. The absolute space refers to the space that can expand unlimitedly. The relative space refers to the space between an object and the surrounding objects. The spaces are everywhere all the time. There is space between the galaxies and between the atoms. The space also includes the negative and positive spaces. The space where the materials exist is called the positive space. The space where the non-materials exist is called the negative space. The human bodies exist in the positive space while the spiritual bodies exist in the negative space. The positive space twists, swells, contracts or disappears with the size of the object's mass, energy and forms. It is a relatively stable space. The negative space changes abruptly and has limitless changes in a short while. The space can change the forms and movement laws of objects. The different spaces decide the different movement laws and forms of the objects. For instance, the figure of the people living in the frigid zones is different from that of those living the tropical environment. The urban people have different looks from those living in the rural areas, the fishermen and the shepherds. The growth model, blossoming and fruiting timing of the grass in the deserts are different from those living the forest or highlands. The monkeys in the scenic areas have different capability of survival from those living in the forests. The men who get along with women for a long time have different tempers and personality with those staying longer with the other men. The mentality and behavior between businessmen and priests are different. The people working in the temples have different thinking from those working for the government. The space change can arouse the people's change in physical function, thinking ways and mentality. The disease contracted in the cold and moist regions will get cured automatically in the warm and dry zones. The disease contracted in cities will get cured in the rural areas. The people having average performance will achieve great success when transferred to another place. The low-ranked government official might make a great deal of money if doing business. The space change often leads to the change of situations. If one wants to change his life, he has to change the activity space. Otherwise he will die without any change or progress. The space is changing. It can be expanded, compressed, or twisted. When the mass of one object is equal to that of another object, the space between them is in linear arrangement. When they are not equal, the space between them will be expanded, compressed, twisted, and arranged in the form of an umbrella or rotation. When the mass of an object, we can call it the energy, is bigger than the total of the surrounding object's mass, energy, the space between them is the linear stable space and the object is the mass center of the space. For the small mass objects, the space distance between the small mass objects and this big quality, high energy, object is expanded. However, for the high energy object, the space distance has been compressed. Contrary to the negative space, the big mass object, the space between the big mass object and the small mass objects has been expanded. For the small mass objects has been compressed. So for the genuine Christians' followers, Yahweh and Jesus just stay beside them, influencing their words and behaviors at all times. For Yahweh and Jesus, the Christians are staying distantly and the non-Christians even farther. The Muslims and Allah Muhammad, the Buddhists and Sakyamuni, the Taoists and Original Heaven Lord and Lao Tzu have the same space relationship. Degree: a bosom friend afar brings a distant land near, plus or minus. The space distance of thousands of km has been compressed into the wall-like distance. This is for the low-energy people only. For the high-energy people, even if you are standing in front of him, he feels you are far away at the other end of the world. This is why the people with the highest energy feel the loneliest. Even if they are standing in a chaotic market, they feel isolated and mournful.